Hello, welcome into another Purple Insider Extra. Matthew Coller here along with Sam Ekstrom. If you're interested in finding out every game, how we picked it for the Vikings' newly released 2021 schedule, go to purpleinsider.substack.com, or you can listen to the podcast version wherever you get your podcasts. Just type in Purple Insider and give it a listen. Sam, let's talk about the pivot points of the 2021 season. In your mind, where will this season be shaped? What week, what game will be the one that either bolsters the Vikings season, leads them onto the playoffs, or if they lose, could create quite an uphill battle?
I'm looking at that stretch starting in week 9, between weeks 9 and 13, 4 of 5 games on the road with the Packers at home sandwiched in. I think the pivot point is somewhere in there. That's the fulcrum of your season, starting the second half of games, all very difficult opponents. And when I look at a stretch like that, I say, okay, what's a win that you can put in your back pocket, that you can bank up, that if you win, okay, like you're still in good shape. But if you lose, you're really going to be behind the 8 ball. And I think it's the Los Angeles Chargers. And I know that might seem like an odd opponent. That's not really a rivalry. That's not a conference opponent. But I see that game and I say, okay, in a brutal stretch, you've got to win that game because you're probably going to be favored. You've got Baltimore before, maybe a loss. You've got Green Bay after, going to be a tough game. You've got to win that one. If you lose, you're deflated. You're going into Green Bay and then San Francisco, and you're coming off of a bad loss. You have to beat a first-year coach, a second-year quarterback, not a good home field advantage. So I guess my criteria was, what's a game you can't afford to blow? And I think it's the Los Angeles Chargers week 10, right when teams are starting to make those moves into the playoff seeding, trying to move up the ranks in the division. You got to beat LA.
I think that's a great pick. I'm going to go with coming out of the bye week. The Vikings play on Sunday Night Football against the Dallas Cowboys. Their games after that get pretty tough. They have to go to Baltimore and then at Los Angeles, like you mentioned, and then play against the Green Bay Packers at home and then to San Francisco. So if you win that game coming out of the bye, where you have a big advantage with the bye week leading up to that game, you're also playing that at home against the Dallas Cowboys. I think there's the element of some momentum there, whether that exists or not, but at least you'll have that win in your pocket if you end up with some stumbling blocks along the way. There's also the part of just feeling like you're a real contending team. If you come out of the bye week with that advantage and you're rested and you're ready to go, and you come apart against the team in Dallas that is good, but maybe not that much better than you or even better than you at that point, then I think it's going to feel like, wow, there is quite the uphill battle. I'm going to nominate another one. You can tell me what you think. Maybe you feel like it's too early in the season, but week 2 against Arizona, starting the year against Cincinnati. Usually week 1 games are kind of a coin flip, but let's just say the Vikings are the better team and they come away with a win there. I think you want to be 2-0 when you come back home to play Seattle and Cleveland, because those are two very good teams. They come back at 1-1. It's not a travesty. The season's not over, but I feel like it could be a big swing and give you a little bit of cushion as you go into some tough games after week 2. And Arizona could be a team that you're battling with for playoff position down the stretch.
Yeah, always a good thing to beat conference opponents early in the year, get that tiebreaker under your belt. And if you are 2-0, going home for 3 consecutive, suddenly the path to 5-1 at the bye becomes very clear. You also have, wiggle room to lose to Russell Wilson, as the Vikings do annually, and it wouldn't kill you. Then you could go beat the Browns and Kevin Stefanski in week 4. You've got week 5 against Detroit, should be a win. Week 6 at Carolina, knock on wood, should be a win. And then there you are, 5-1. So yeah, I mean, you could call it Arizona, and that's kind of in the same sense as my LA game. Like, you just can't afford to screw it up. You have to win that game. But if you do come home 1-1, well, then the Seattle game has all the more meaning. Then the pressure is on in your home opener. I do think the Vikings are going to get a pretty big home field boost, though, in that Seattle game. Tough opponent, home opener. Fans will be filling the stadium for the first time in 2 years. That's going to really give the Vikings a charge. And the same thing in that Cowboys game you mentioned, the first primetime game post-pandemic, Halloween night. The bank is going to be raucous, and that's going to give the Vikings a pretty good jump there in that first quarter.
Okay, yes or no, Sam? Is this schedule hard? Do you think the Vikings have a tough time, or do you think that they got a pretty decent slate?
I don't think it's hard. I think it's medium. I mean, I think you're taking on a lot of unproven quarterbacks, and it could turn into a ton of unproven quarterbacks if you have to face Jordan Love twice and Justin Fields twice, which you might be. You might be facing Trey Lance. You might be facing Joe Burrow. Kyler Murray is kind of in that critical year where he's deciding whether or not he's good or not, but he's still a young quarterback. The Vikings might have at least the veteran advantage at quarterback in a lot of games. Doesn't mean that Cousins is the better quarterback. Certainly, young quarterbacks like Lamar Jackson have the edge. I think Dak Prescott has the edge on him. But the Vikings will be favored in a lot of these road games, I think, which is pretty big. So I don't hate the schedule. I think the Vikings have a really good chance to win double-digit games.
I totally agree with you. And there's a lot of teams that have very similar projections to the Vikings, to where if you said, is this team better or worse than the Vikings? Take the Arizona Cardinals, for example. I'm not sure yet. I guess we're going to find out. But I would go with just right. Is it too hot, too cold? No, this one's just right for 2021. It's been another Purple Insider Extra. Again, listen to the full conversations wherever you get your podcast. Just type in Purple Insider, and we'll catch you next time.